All right, so we're going to take a look at last night's homework problems. Here was question number 1. This was somebody's response to the coffee problem. That is correct and well organized. Notice here they started with a question, how many ounces are in a pound, and then they answered that question. And then they wrote another question, how many ounces are in 2 pounds, and then they answered that question by doubling each of those to get 32 for 2. Then, how much does 1 pound cost? They took that $5.92 and divided by 2 to get $2.96. And if 1 pound is $2.96, how much is it per ounce is their next question. They took $2.96 divided by 16 to get 0.185. And finally, how many 0.185s are in the $1.11 to find the number of ounces? That's 1.11 divided by 0.185 is 6 for an answer of 6 ounces. So notice here that their questions are actually explaining what each step actually means. They're not just writing a question that says, what's 5.92 divided by 2? They're actually asking a real-world question about that operation, and then they give the answer to that real-world question. So that's number 1. Let's take a look at number 2, sharing expenses. So this person started with questions about how much each person spent, which was, those first 4 were given in the problem and no work to do there. But then this 5th person, there's a small thing to do. How much did Bobby spend? You just have to add those 2 amounts together. For this one, how much did everything cost? Would be their next question. And here you should show your work of you adding together how much, and here you could add those separately, or since you already added them together, I have this number, and then that equals this total. Next, how much is that per person? And that's $8.16 per person. Then she went on to ask each question about how much does each person owe. So Leroy here actually spent more than he owes, so he doesn't owe anything. Alex owes $5.16. Kulwinder owes $1.16. Max actually spent more than he owes, so he doesn't owe anything. And then Bobby owes 36 cents. So these negatives are the amounts owed by these people. One more thing that this question needs, though, the question was like who owes who. So the thing is, like, Alex, who should Alex give his money to? Well, there are 2 people that are owed money, and you can see Alex is going to give his money to Leroy, and then you kind of have to figure out, okay, who's going to give Max his 84 cents? It's like Bobby doesn't have that much, or doesn't owe that much, and Kulwinder owes more than that, so one way you could do it is you could have Kulwinder pay 84 cents of his there, and then the other, I think that would leave 36 cents. Goes to Leroy, and then Bobby owes all of his 36 cents to Leroy. So you should have something along the lines of Alex owes Leroy $5.16. Bobby owes Leroy 36 cents. And Kulwinder owes Leroy 32 cents. And if you add those together, that's Leroy's total $5.84 that he's owed. But then Kulwinder also owes Max 84 cents, and that's how Max gets his money. So there's number 2. And then here's somebody's response for number 4. Notice they typed theirs up in a Google Doc, which is a fine way to do your homework if it works for you. And then you can see each one of their steps here. Their first was how many squares are there? There were 6 squares, so first step is just counting them up. What's the area of 1 square? Well, he took the total area divided by the number of squares to get 9 square feet. Next, what is the length of a side of the squares? Well, to make 9 square feet, he said that needs to be a 3 by 3 squared. So the length of a side is 3. Notice this doesn't this question doesn't say what's 3 times 3, or this question doesn't say what's the square root of 9. This is the real meaning of what this is actually doing, which is what your question should look like. Then how many outward facing sides are there? 14. And basically here's where some people got, if you got 72, you didn't pay attention to what the perimeter of this shape actually would mean. The perimeter is not adding up every side you see in this diagram. The perimeter is just adding up the side lengths that are on the outside, or the outward facing sides. So we counted up how many outward facing sides there were to make the perimeter of this large shape, and there are 14. Then finally, what is the perimeter? 3 times 14 is 42. And you'll notice that this last question is pretty much always going to be the original question from the problem. But you should get 42 there. So some of you have to start working on using this strategy accurately. Make sure for each step you write a question and then answer that question. So these are 3 good examples of what your subproblem strategy should look like.